Hello, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Alea Ricklefs, and I am 15. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I have cyclic vomiting syndrome. Um, I've had cyclic vomiting syndrome for 13 years now. I was 2 when the episodes started, but I was only diagnosed 2 years ago, beginning of 2018, when I was 13. So since my diagnosis, I've just been trying to learn everything I can about CVS and manage my CVS. And also, I'm a rare disease activist. I do federal policy advocacy and online awareness.
That's great. Thank you, Alea. And let's see, you answered my first question about how long you've had CBS. So you went quite a long time without a diagnosis. Were you diagnosed with other things that they were mistaking, that they were misdiagnosing you with?
I was told, honestly, I got so many kind of diagnoses. I was told that I had a sensitive stomach in the beginning. I was told it was postnasal drip, an overactive gag reflex, a nervous tummy, anxiety, I GERD, I was told so many things over those 11 years. And I went to doctors like gastroenterologists, ear, nose, and throat, pediatrician, all those kind of doctors. And finally, it was when we switched health insurance in 2017 that we started looking into CVS. And actually, it was one of my mom's friends that sent her an article about CVS and said, hey, that she thought it sounded like me. And so we we were like, hey, could this be CVS? To my doctor, who referred me to yet another gastroenterologist who had had experience working with CVS, and that was a gastroenterologist that diagnosed me.
Wow, that's quite a long journey, but I'm glad you finally got the diagnosis. Can you describe a typical episode?
So a lot of my episodes look different based on what is triggering them. So probably the worst of my episodes are viral induced, colds, stuff like that. And that's probably anywhere from 24 to 48 hours, vomiting 10 to 15 times every 20 to 30 minutes, more in the beginning, like closer to 15 minutes. Then at the end kind of tapers off to like an hour between little spurts of vomiting. And those are like, I get so dehydrated that I can barely walk, can't really talk by the end, because of nausea and just dehydration, fatigue. And for days after those, I'm dizzy when I stand up, my legs hurt, all my joints, just extremely fatigued. And then I get the actual cold. Like it takes me 2 days to recover from the episode, and then I get the cold, and that's like 3 or 4 days. So those just take me out for a long time. And episodes caused by positive stress, Christmas, vacation, that kind of thing, those look kind of similar to those in duration, a little slightly less intense, but yeah, those are like generally 24 hours or so. And yeah, after those, I'm like very, very dehydrated and struggling to like walk and stuff. And then probably ranking these in order of severity, the third one would be hormonal induced episodes. With those, I tend to have like a little mini episode, like vomiting maybe 5, 10 times every hour for like just a few hours. But it'll be like one of those every morning for about a week or maybe even 2 weeks. And negative stress episodes are kind of similar to those little mini episodes that I get with hormonal. Like I will have a negative stress episode the morning before a test or some other event that I'm stressed about. That'll be, vomiting a few times every hour or so. And still, I mean, obviously they all have a lot of effects beyond vomiting. But yeah, so one thing is though that there's a continuity in each type of episode. Like all the viral induced look the same, all the hormonal induced look the same, and so on.
So you have quite a few triggers. So how often do you typically have episodes? I know that's might be a little bit tricky to pinpoint since you have so many different triggers.
Well, in the beginning, like, because it's actually changed over time in these 13 years. In the beginning, it would be probably maybe I'd say 3 to 5 to maybe 7 or 8 episodes a year, and a lot of it depended on how many colds I got, which in elementary school and middle school was a lot. So, and then there would be like kind of the yearly, Christmas episode, vacation episode, that kind of stuff. So yeah, somewhere hovering in that range. And then about 2-3 years ago, I, went through puberty and all those hormones kicking up. And then I started having multiple episodes per month. Like, I would have all my other triggers, and then I'd have them every time I got my cycle and every time I ovulated and all of that. So yes, it became closer to like 20-24 episodes a year. And then like since diagnosis, they've kind of, I was on the medication that I'm still on for about a year, and it worked great. And I had some nausea episodes, but did not vomit for almost a year. And then that was 2018. Then this past kind of year and a half, there's definitely been more. So it's just kind of, it's fluid, and it changes over time with, hormonal changes and body changes and that kind of thing.
Makes perfect sense. So with the diagnosis, you were put on some medications that at least initially did help you a little bit.
Yes.
Okay, great. If there was one CVS symptom you could get rid of, what would it be?
The nausea, if I had to pick only one. Because sometimes even when I'm not vomiting, I have really debilitating nausea. So like sometimes I will have really debilitating nausea during an episode and just never throw up. So the nausea is definitely more common than the vomiting. So yeah, I'd get rid of that one.
What would you like people who don't understand CVS to know about living with CVS?
I want them to understand that CVS is not just vomiting. Everybody's vomited before, but so they have some kind of frame of reference, but it's not like vomiting from eating too much or vomiting from eating bad food from a restaurant. It is just absolutely debilitating and relentless. And it's an invisible illness as well. So, even though it's always kind of there, even when you're not actively in an episode, you're not going to know if someone that you meet is a CVS sufferer or if they've had a recent episode unless they tell you. So, yeah, and really also it just, yeah, like I've said before, CVS, it's always there. It's always that little presence in your life.
That's a good way to put it. What would you tell someone who's newly diagnosed or thinks they might have it and is hoping to get diagnosed with CVS?
The main piece of advice that I would give would be find a doctor that believes you and is willing to work with you and your type of CVS, understands CVS. Like I have gone to so many doctors that either do not understand CVS, don't know about CVS, or weren't willing to work with me, gave me misdiagnoses, whatever. But kind of also just advocate for yourself. Like do not go gentle into that good night. Like, kind of you think about, if you want to get a second opinion, if your doctor dismisses you, absolutely get that second opinion, because that second opinion could very well be what gets you your diagnosis and your treatments and changes your life. So I would also say that there is hope. Once you've already been diagnosed, there's hope for feeling better and having, less episodes. And really just, to all these newly diagnosed people, you are strong. You have already done so much by getting diagnosed. And, obviously I'm not going to try to make some one-size-fits-all generalization about how diagnosis affects people, but the future really could be looking up for you.
I think definitely getting the diagnosis is very empowering for some people.
It was very, very empowering for me, because it was just like, it's not in my head. It's not nothing. It's not a sensitive stomach. And then it was like, there are other people like me. It's rare, but there are people out there who are going through the exact same thing that I was. And that's just finding that community, both with cyclic vomiting syndrome and with rare diseases, has just one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
That's good. I'm glad you've been able to find that. How do you feel CVS has impacted your life?
Well, I think that, if I didn't have CVS, I would have a lot less kind of fear in general. I've had to go to kind of great lengths to avoid like getting a cold, like really afraid. I was always really afraid of getting colds because, that would take me out for a week and 24 to 48 hours of vomiting. So I think that, and there'd be less, like, I think I would have had a more typical childhood. Even as young as 4 or 5 years old, I was having to kind of learn to temper my emotions. I couldn't get excited because there was that instant consequence from my body for being excited. And I think that obviously I would not have missed, things like camping trips. I wouldn't have been sick on vacation. And I think kind of my educational experience would have looked a lot different as well, because between being undiagnosed and being diagnosed, I missed so much school. Like, I'm talking 20 plus days a year. And thankfully my school was understanding, even when no one had any clue why I was vomiting. But so it would have been, I would not have had to deal with those kind of educational hurdles, having to make up, all these assignments. And now, I have accommodation plans in place, but without CVS, I would not have had to be worrying about that kind of stuff, like accommodations and accessibility and that kind of stuff. It's super, super important. And that's something that everyone, whether they have, chronic illness, disability or not, should definitely be mindful of, but I would not have had to worry about it as much.
I think those are all good points. Did CVSA help you? And if so, how?
They definitely did. The CVSA has, they have monthly support group calls. Haven't been able to fit them into my schedule lately, but I've gone to a few. Message boards, resources about like managing CVS, expert presentations. I think I've been to 1 or 2 of those. And also CVSA is really on the front lines of CVS research. They last year put out the adult treatment guidelines, which was a super big step. And right now they're fundraising for the pediatric guidelines update project. The old ones are now going on 12 years old. And that kind of research, that's really, really important. And it can definitely change the lives of CVS patients and CVS sufferers. So yes, CVSA has helped me in a lot of ways.
Great, I'm glad to hear that. If you had one word to describe CVS, what would it be?
Vicious. It's just, it never gives up. It never lets up.
It's a good one. I haven't gotten that one yet. And Alea, is there anything else that you would like to share about your CVS? Just about CVS?
Kind of one of the main things that I would say, just a little plug for the rare disease advocacy here. There is no FDA approved treatment for CVS. There are off-label treatments, but there's no treatment specifically for CVS, and that is also true for 95% of rare diseases. So it's really important that people, whether you have a rare disease or not, educate yourself on rare diseases. And also, it's really important for you can, whether you have a rare disease or not, it would mean a lot to the rare disease community if you advocated for some of these programs that incentivize the creation of medications for rare diseases, because those, if there was a medication specifically for CVS, I think that it would really change the course of my treatment and change my life. And so I think that's a really important thing.